reach out. We are here on location. What location is that? That's for us to know and you to not. But welcome. And as you can see, Bill and I have a special guest with us today. Her name, and you might know her, she's on lots of our shows, and we've been doing shows together for years, is Hagir Elsheikh. And we are going to talk about a lot of stuff. We're going to get into a whole array of things, but what is really on her mind today, and ours too, is the crisis in Sudan and the seemingly never ending crisis that Sudan has been and has become since, God, what, the early 1900s?
Yeah.
For being general, but especially now. It's getting really bad now. So, Hagir, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank
How's
you
it
for
going?
having me. Thank you for having me, and thank you for caring. And that's one of the good things I like about your show is you're not just focusing on what is happening here locally, but you actually reach out truly to the rest of the world.
The one
Absolutely.
thing we know is that it's all tied together.
Yeah.
You know, what we do here determines what we do over there, or what we do over there determines who we are here. Yeah, we're all tied into this together. It's one world, and we all live in it.
Absolutely. We are undeniably interconnected. And the old adage is, maybe it's corny, but a suffering of one person is a suffering of all, and the joy of one is a joy of all.
True.
We are all connected.
Sometimes the reason that a cliche becomes a cliche is because it's a cliche.
It's a good one.
It's true.
And because it's a good one.
Right. A truism, and
Right.
we wanted a truism because it's true.
Right.
Awesome. So, huge crackdown in Sudan.
Yes.
It's bad. It's very bad.
Okay, let's jump to the
Yes.
subject if that's okay with you.
Absolutely.
All right. So, in order for us to actually start talking about the situation in Sudan, we can briefly talk about the history. And I'm not gonna like drag you in a long conversation about history of Sudan. Everyone can go out and Google and search that. But the war in South Sudan started 1955, just few months before the independence of Sudan in 1956. Then in 1972, they signed an Addis Ababa agreement. You probably heard of that, to end the 17-year of civil war. That's during Nimeri, which was the president at that time. But in 1983, where to me I believe that's the beginning of the end, Nimeri amended the Sudanese law to bring it into line with the strict Islamic legal code, which is the Sharia law, if you guys are aware of that. He did that in 1983, which brought the war back again. The civil war between South Sudan and North Sudan ceased for after 17 years, and then it restarted back up again. In 1985, another coup took over Nimeri government, and by a chief of staff from him. Sudan had a short-lived democratic government. 1986, it was a civil government made to restore peace.
Just to briefly interject, kind of sandwiched in there amidst those different coups was the discovery of an oil-rich Sudan.
Exactly.
I believe in 82, was it?
Exactly, around that time. And a lot of people tried to make it look like a religious war. It's mainly greed, and I think everybody could agree to that. It's like oil and dictatorship in that region. In 1989, this current government took over. 1989, almost 30 years ago. It's a coup, military coup. They came, and they were army and Muslim fundamentalist. So basically, if you know the National Islamic Front, the people are governing the country right now.
Okay. Let me ask something to clarify for myself, because I was confused for a while, for quite a while, and I still might be. Sudan is one big country.
It is.
And then it was the biggest country actually in Africa.
It was one of the largest country in Africa.
The largest country in Africa.
Before the division of the North and the South in 2011.
In 2011.
Wow, I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
Now, the South has different ethnic groups.
Yeah, you can say that. There is, in the South, of course, just like here, you have different race and ethnicities and religious. The North is mainly, I mean, they say mixed with Arab because of the region, and Nubian. If you know about the pyramids and Nuba, Kosh, and the history.
Actually, the Sudan means the land of the blacks.
The land of the blacks. Sudan, the word comes from Bilad al-Sudan, which is land of the blacks.
So there was African.
Well, we're African.
Okay.
They try to make it like Arab, but we are.
Exactly. Yeah. Like Arab and African ain't African.
We are African. And honestly, the crisis of identity, it's there.
But isn't that a big contributing factor to the way that people play on Sudan?
The genocides, I mean,
the British took over.
The British took over.
And they play one against the other.
And they play one against another.
Oh, the British! What a surprise! A surprise!
Yeah,
the British would take over.
But also they try to make it look like a religious war. It is not. If we just go back to 1989, where to me the whole crisis we're talking about now, it started with this current government. Omar al-Bashir is wanted by the ICC, the International Criminal Court, for crime of genocides, crime of war against civilians, and crimes against humanity. This, like I said, almost 30 years this government took over. And that was one of the reasons for me to flee the country. They started arresting immediately after the time they took over. They started detaining activists, forcing people to leave their jobs, leave their family. Many people were killed. When we were in high school, going to college, they were forcing the student who graduated college to go fight the war that we don't believe in, the war between the North and the South, because that in the 1990, 95, around that time, the war was still there. So that we were forced. We were forced to dress a certain way. They did they call it the order. They have people that they call them with no qualification. Like when we talk here in the U.S. about the injustice or the police brutality, over there is no such a thing as police protecting you or laws or regulation. Anyone that has a relationship with the current government can do whatever to you. So if I am a woman and walking on the street and some guy thought the way I was dressed is inappropriate or the way I looked inappropriate, they have the right to lash you, to detain you, to do whatever they want. Again, that's just a general. But then if you're an activist, your life is in danger, actually. If you go out and try to protest and say, I am demanding a better life for myself or my kids, this is something that they oppose.
I'm assuming these groups are, while supported by the government, not directly connected to the government.
No, they are.
They are.
And let's just clear one thing. A lot of people don't think, like the revolution happening now, which we're going to get to that soon. The revolution happening now, it happened also in 2013.
Yes.
Where we lost a lot of lives. And people try to make it, or the media in general, try to make it look like because of the rising prices of bread, or just because one specific reason. That's not true. This is happening because of people are demanding peace. They are demanding their freedom from a dictatorship that took over 1989. I mean, come on. I have clothes that are like less than that. How can someone, Omar al-Bashir today, he is over 70 years old.
He come in he's been for just 30 years.
Mm-hmm.
There's been one election,
Mm-hmm.
but he maintained power all that time.
It wasn't an election. Let's clear that.
Okay.
It was a military coup in 1989 took over.
Uh-huh.
Then when he was in power, after many years, he made a rigid election.
Uh-huh.
They said, okay, we are going to do an election. We're going to have a democratic country. We're going to let you go out and vote. And people actually went out and vote. But your vote is not going to count, because when we talk about, that's the difference between a dictatorship and a democratic, actually real democratic
election,
country.
yeah.
This is not a real election.
This is what, 96?
This is 96 when they did that. And he just announced that he is running again in 2020, in April 2020. Umar al-Bashir, who is over 70 years old, he's running again, which everybody in Sudan knows that he is going to run and he's going to win. And this is going to continue.
There was a year there where he said, "Oh, I'm done. I wasn't going to run. Like, that's it. That's the last year." Was it 2013? He said he was done.
This is not going to happen.
Yeah.
He's going to say that this is not going to happen. The people of Sudan are demanding freedom. They want their voice to be heard. They want a good living condition for them, for their kids. They demand education. They demand their voices to be heard. It is not about bread. And let's just say it, yes, the prices of the bread is tripled. There is no oil. People are standing in lines to get just gas so they can get from their houses to their job or somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
It tripled. The Sudanese pound currently, it is inflation. The prices, everything is, there is nothing. Mm-hmm. There is no life. Even if you have money, you can't get any kind of health. You can't get any education. So I just want to make one thing clear. It is not about bread. It is not about food. It is about the freedom that they're seeking.
Well, in the sense that the bread is the staff of life, symbolically is it about bread?
Yes. Yes.
So something you said I think on Facebook a few days ago was pretty telling. That you referred to this as Sudanese Spring or Sudan Spring,
yes,
much like Arab Spring in 2009 through 2011.
The only reason I mentioned that is because a lot of people are saying this is another part of the Arab Spring. We are not following. Sudan has the first revolution many years ago. This is not the first time we took over a dictatorship. This is not the first time we took down a dictatorship or went out for a revolution. And they call it intifada. We had an intifada or the revolution many times, we have the power and the will. So to make it look like one of the other Arab Spring or anything happening now, it is just making this whole movement as a part of a bigger movement. Okay, because the Arab went out and did this, we're gonna do this. No.
It also dilutes it. I mean, but even so, even worse than that, to tell you the truth, because when you really go in to take a look at what the Arab Spring was, it wasn't what we say it was.
Yeah.
You know, that's a propaganda model, actually, those two words, Arab and Spring. It never happened like that.
Yeah.
It's just incredibly destabilizing.
And it was certainly an outside thing. The influence of us in Egypt, for example, and if you go back to the beginning, to Tunisia, you know, I mean, our involvement in it, it's not that's something that came necessarily from the internal people. It comes from outside NGOs.
Thank you for mentioning that, and I want everyone listening to us right now to understand one thing, that this revolution is made in Sudan by Sudanese people. I am here in the United States. I don't have any power. I am not the one facing the gas. I am not the one getting shot at by guns. I'm not the one in the front line. I'm here simply to just raise awareness. and to talk about what is happening in Sudan. But everything is happening there is happening with the young people. And this is what is really refreshing about this intifada or about this revolution. The young people of Sudan, the one was born in Umar al-Bashir time. Most of them are 20. The one leading the fight now, they're 20 and 30s.
That's all they know.
They grew up in this dictatorship government, and that's all they know. And for them to wake up and lead us, the old farts, you know, it's refreshing, and it makes you really hope. You know, a lot of people are hopeless, and they say this young generation, every fighters are out. Like all of us, we fought, we were tortured and detained, and we suffered from this government, and we fled the country. And now we have a good life somewhere else. But they're still fighting the fight in Sudan.
I think every movement needs that young sort of fire to start. But you need all the levels. You need like the people who are that passionate, and you need the people who are knowledgeable, and you need the elders with the wisdom. You need everything. And I think if this revolution really encompasses all that, you never know. Undoubtedly, the state structure of Sudan is powerful. Of course it is. They're cracking down harshly.
So one thing I wanted to shed light on what Umar al-Bashir and his current government is doing to Sudanese people and done in the past since they took over in 1989. In 2001, let's not forget the hunger and famine that affect 3 million people in Sudan. That's in 2001. In 2003, the conflict, Darfur conflict started. And everybody knows about Sudan, probably know about Darfur. So the conflict started in 2004. In 2003, the conflict started. 2004, Umar al-Bashir and his army threw strikes that killed almost, I believe, is it 1.4 million were dead and 3 million were displaced.
Wow.
Now there are refugees everywhere. So that's what they did. And for his action,
genocide, whichever word you want to use, but they called it
genocide.
at the time.
It is an ethnic cleansing that made the UN declare Darfur crisis is one of the worst humanitarian crisis in the region.
This is where the planes attacked the villages.
They threw the chemical weapon, they striked, and then from that time they started killing the people in Nubian mountain, Jibal al-Nuba. They killed people in Darfur, South Darfur, Kordofan, and they killed people in Blue Nile state, and South Kordofan and the Nubian mountain. Then in 2009, that what caused the International Criminal Court to issue a warning arrest. 2009, we are in what? Heading to 2019, and he's still out there doing what he's doing.
With impunity.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, and he travels. He goes to different countries and do whatever he wants to do, and he is wanted for genocide, wars against humanity, all of that, and he still wanted to run again in 2020. So that's what led the people in Sudan to go out and fight.
Okay, I was wondering what the catalyst of this was. It was him. I mean, it was many things, undoubtedly, but him announcing that he was going to run in 2020 really put people's feet to the fire.
Yeah, him running in 2020, the raising prices of everything. Basically, let's put it this way. If I'm going to die at home because there's no food, there is no medicine, I cannot travel, I can't do anything. You can't even have fun because you're going to get arrested. If you are walking and someone did not like the way you walk, they can arrest you. What quality of life do the people of Sudan have? What quality of life do you have? So those young people said, I'm dying either ways. I better die for my freedom. Die fighting. Then the older generation, the parent, wanted to die because I'm going to die so my kids can have a better life.
You see, this is going for a long time.
It is. And if people understood the systemic killing, the dictatorship, everything going in Sudan, they will understand this is not just, and that's why I'm going to repeat it to the end of life. It is not just about bread.
Oh, no,
Bread
man.
is the, like you said,
It's the staff of life.
It's the
a
staff
symbol.
of
If
life.
you want to say that symbolically, it's true.
symbolically it's true,
But not only in Sudan.
not only in Sudan, but
Okay.
that's
But you got other elements there that are different from other places outside of the inflation
Yeah.
and whatnot, but the dictatorship and
inflation.
the actual corruption of this man. I mean, this guy, when you have power and you have impunity for over 30 years, you start to think of yourself as omniscient.
Exactly.
He starts to.
He just to start. He knows that he think he is, someone that you cannot reach, you cannot touch, because he's been in the government. And you know what? Let's just say one more thing. It is not about Umar al-Bashir himself. It is not just him. It's a whole government.
Yes.
And all of them are, we have a
And
guy
the army.
here, and we have people actually rallying in Washington, D.C. I miss that because I wanted to be on your show and talk, but they have a letter that they're giving to the White House. They were rallying at the Sudanese embassy last week because there is one of the war criminals, and one of the one that tortured many of us who seek asylum, including myself. He is here working in the embassy in New York.
Mm-hmm.
We sent letters. People went there and talked, and requests from their senators for him to be sent to justice. His name is Muhammad Al-Ata. Muhammad Al-Ata need to be brought to justice. And that's it. He is here, currently in the U.S. What does that tell you?
It tells me what seems to be obvious, but I'm going to ask the question anyway. What is the relationship of the United States government to all this? Since we think we rule the world, what have we said about it?
Let me say one thing. First of all, the Sudanese people don't want any invasion from another country. Historically, the United States, every place that we went to as a country, we messed it up.
Yeah, amen.
So that's why I don't want any government, United States or whatever,
Right.
to intervene and go do something. But we can do something. And instead of the government here in the United States hiring criminals, allowing Umar al-Bashir and some other war criminals and dictatorship from Sudan to come here, where I'm standing in the same street or living in the same city with someone who tortured me and tortured my friend, and he's protected.
So we just don't answer. We just allow it to go on.
We allow it to go on. That's why we're asking.
If you ask a question
we're
like, what are you
asking-
going to do? We say nothing.
Nothing.
Okay.
So when they said they're giving a letter to Trump, I said, he's not going to do anything. You know? And to be frank, the people of Sudan don't want,
Well, we don't want. You don't want invasion.
we don't want them to invade.
to become a vassal state. You don't want to be a part of
But
the
we
hegemony.
but we want
But
one thing.
If somebody's going to say something with respect to what human democracy and values are, you
Then
wouldn't
we can
mind
do that.
somebody speaking
No,
up.
I don't mind anyone is speaking. I mind the government here in the United States or any other government to go to Sudan and fight our fight. Because I know that the young Sudanese people are able and capable of throwing this government. But what I wanted from the organization, like the human rights organization, what you guys are doing now in your show, all the other media, to talk about the violation for one reason, because the pressure, the world pressure, will stop them from killing. Today, this revolution started on the 19th of December. Today is what, the 28th? So it is 9 days going strong and steady, and hats off to all of them. They killed so many people. As young as 9, I believe, the youngest one, they shot him right in the head. They had people up on a higher building, shooting. Civilians who are going protesting have nothing in their hand.
These are trained snipers.
Trained snipers, and that's why we tell people they threw tear gas to them in their face. They shoot them right in the head, shoot them in the neck. And you saw the videos that I sent to you guys. So many people are dead. Young people are dead. Why? Because simply they went and protest peacefully. So what I wanted from all this, talking to you guys now and talking in Facebook or just being crazy about spreading the word, is this to stop. All we wanted from the world is to voice their concern and to apply pressure to the government so they can let them protest peacefully. And for this criminal, Umar al-Bashir and his whole government to step down. That's all we want. But we don't want any army from the US or any other country to invade Sudan.
Well,
no, thank you.
Don't you think they need a special dose of freedom? Couldn't we give them some freedom with our army?
I'm not understanding. What do you mean?
I'm saying, we as the United States should bless Sudan with our freedom.
I don't think we have a good freedom here to begin with.
This is what I'm saying. And look at what we do in, say, Afghanistan. They
or
create
any
a weak Vichy state that has very little authority and power.
Yeah. So this current government killed so many people. They killed them every day from 1989. People are dying of hunger. People are dying of being bombed while they're asleep. People are dying in Darfur. People are dying in South Kordofan. People are still facing famine in all those areas. There is many war zones in Sudan. Sudan is basically now one war zone. We don't have oil. They have money offshore. All the government has their money in Malaysia, and the current president of Sudan's wife is in England now. So tell me, why is the United Kingdom allowing her to be there shopping?
She brings
Took her money. She brings money. So money talks.
Yeah,
It's nothing like that. The UK is allowing her and few of the criminals to run. They run, basically.
As a former colony of the UK, they probably see it as their duty to support the ruling class in Sudan. Not the people, certainly.
Well, the ruling class in Sudan probably worked for the royals at one point or another. They got in the habit of taking care of their stooges.
Yeah. So they're shooting civilians point blank.
Sure.
You are out there protesting, asking, and if you saw the videos on Facebook or anywhere, people are asking, basically saying peace. We want peace. We want freedom. We want you to leave. Arhal, leave us. That's all they wanted, for him and his government to leave us. But he's still there. And he's, like I said, over 70 years old and looking for re-election. So
it seems like in some ways the Sudan is a case study in nothingness. I mean, what I'm saying is that somebody comes into power, he goes through all this over and over again to maintain power. He doesn't have to do that to maintain power.
No.
I mean, the fact that he has power and power continually generates and regenerates itself anyway. You don't have to kill people to stay in power.
Yeah.
You don't have to have...
Well, that's not how it is in that region. in Sudan, in Africa, or in that area, they govern by...
But they don't have to.
They don't have to. Because those people are going out there peacefully protesting, and you have snipers up shooting them, killing them, point blank.
Even before it gets to that point of the people going to the streets and whatnot, the way you sit up between the people and the authorities. I mean, we go. It's not just. I mean, I'm to the Sudan. You go to Rwanda. You go to you look at people and they have this genocidal attitude.
Yeah,
it's an attitude. I mean, there's no reason for the Houthis to kill the Tutsis to be killed by the Houthis. There's no reason for in Yemen for the true bloodshed that's going on there.
It's like ethnic cleansing, and they seem to truly believe in that term. Like it's almost a holy thing. Like it's very genocidal and Hitlery. Like you must have a pure race of your own people, which is BS.
And that's what they do there in Sudan.
But it just regenerates itself over and over. I mean, we're here talking, 1989?
1989 to present.
To present day.
And hopefully it will be the end of their government today. Today is Friday and a lot of people are out. This is marked the 9th day of the revolution, the Intifada, and they suck the country dry. There is nothing left. They took the money, all the money is out in different banks. They suck the economy. So honestly, there's nothing left for them there. Then leave. Arhal, leave. That's all we wanted from him to leave. But he's not.
So how tightly do you think Bashir will try to hold on to power?
He is still holding on to power. They're still killing people. Last night they found a body of a young Sudanese guy. He was in a fight. They killed him. He was bleeding. They threw him in a river. They killed a young guy right in the middle of his head. They shot in the neck. They're still fighting. They have all their people, their guns, fighting people, civilians with nothing in their hand. So he is still holding, and it's not just him and everyone in his government. They're still holding into power, and they're going to continue. I don't know why. People say that, said it, clear, leave. But there's still...
I watch Mugabe.
I have hope.
He's another example. Mugabe.
Yeah.
Well, why? What is he holding on to? For crying out loud, go to your grave.
Power. I don't know. Yeah, go to your grave, basically. But this time, it is different. In 2013, if you remember, we did that video for the Sudanese revolution in 2013, and they killed so many people also. And that one lasted for a short period of time because they scare people. That's how they stay in government, by putting fear. But what we wanted the people out there to know, that you made it this far. So you are doing something. You're scaring them. Our job, for me personally and anybody outside of Sudan, all we can do is just talk and spread awareness and just let people know the situation in Sudan.
Yes. You do that well, by the way.
Thank you. Thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm so glad you came on today and we could talk about this and
Thank
really
you for having
raise awareness of this growing humanitarian crisis, and to just exemplify the resolve of the Sudanese people as they face that tyranny and dictatorship in seemingly insurmountable odds, facing that great power. And I really wish them the best.
The one thing that she said that really gets to me is to think over and over again that this rises up from the people. That it rises up from the souls of the people. It rises up from the people being deprived of their humanity, and they strike back. And that no matter what happens, that this is still within the soul of the people.
Yeah.
I find this is a strange thing to say, but I admire that in some respects, and I find some hope in that.
Yeah. Well, before we finish this topic or area, I just want to thank you both, and I am sure everyone is watching now. Most of the people of Sudan, I meant to do this live so they know that they have our support. Not just me as a person who was born and belonged to Sudan, but for everyone out there. Not all of us just look and turn their faces. Like, a lot of people here do care about what is happening in Sudan, and they want it change. And we are 100% behind you, support you. You need to be safe, and you need to just make sure that you stand and have a clear vision. And the end of this dictatorship is coming soon. Thank you very much for watching.
Here.
Awesome. Fantastic.
That's really, it will make a huge difference. Like I said, it's and you brought something up earlier. You said what is happening in Yemen. I know you want to bring that all together and talk about the whole situation in this region, and happening in Syria now, and happening in...
Yes.
Absolutely. You see those big entrenched powers who face seemingly no repercussions for their actions.
Mm-hmm.
Well, when she was talking about people not facing, how about Netanyahu? That's one of my favorite people, Yahoo.
Mm-hmm.
You kill Palestinians every day, it means nothing to the world.
Yeah.
Oh
yeah. It has become normal.
It's just normal, yeah. That's what you do. It's Saturday, must be some dead Palestinians.
And it's illegal, or it's becoming illegal in this country to even boycott, divest, or sanction Israel as an individual.
Or even say anything.
Yeah.
That's how absurd.
mentioned that in another show before. You know, when people are used to bad things, and we just look at it and don't say anything. I mean, the first day you hear death toll in Palestine or in Syria, you are really upset and you want to do something, and then the next day, you know, it happens again, and at some point, you it become a normal, like you said. You wake up and you say, "Oh, it's Saturday," you know, must be yeah,
Right.
and that's what become in like Sudan or any other region now. People are used to. That's why Hosni Mubarak in Egypt stayed that long.
Oh yeah.
And that's why, you know, Saddam Hussein, and that's why Gaddafi, and that's why all of those dictators stayed that long. Because
Yeah.
let's face it, people get used to. When you don't kill me today, it's a good day. Seriously, you know.
And some offer decent social programs, social structures. They're not.
Yeah.
These aren't always like these black and white issues. Sometimes there are great gray areas where some dictators do offer their people things if you are in line with their views and agree to, you know, what they say.
To do what they want you to do. Yeah.
And what the history here is one of internal. I mean, you're just destroying your own people over and over again. You know, Gaddafi, for example, he provided for his society as
he
well.
did. He did.
He did some bad things, but he provided a
He
lot
did.
for that
He did.
society.
He did.
In terms of
And I think that's what
education.
Justin is trying
Yeah,
to
right.
say.
Sure.
That they, not all of them did nothing.
No,
I can say this for Omar
Saddam Hussein
Bashir
is another
in
one.
Sudan. He did nothing.
he did nothing.
Infrastructure, nothing. Everything
Mugabe,
is down.
he did nothing.
Yeah, Mugabe did nothing.
You know, they're just, in terms of getting their own aggrandizement, they get their own power, and that's all that they're concerned about.
Yeah.
I mean, not even the people of their own.
Becoming rich.
That's it, the whole thing, everything.
And that's how they control the, like,
But
you look and say,
beyond
how
rich.
many people are, why are people
Beyond
following you?
rich. When I look at somebody like a Gaddafi, you're taking your money and you're putting your money over here, someplace where nobody can touch it.
Yeah,
Billions of dollars that you'll never spend in your life.
yeah,
You know,
yeah,
you know,
yeah.
You're not collecting money now for any kind of useful purpose. It's just for show or something. I don't know what it's for.
I don't know.
You know,
Keep score.
It's just keep score.
I'm the richest.
You win the blood Olympics.
That's not, no, I don't think it's to keep a score, but because they know their day is coming. So Gaddafi didn't think he's going to end this way.
But-
Hosni Mubarak didn't think he's going to end this
They
way.
could well
They put the
beyond.
money offshore, thinking that at some point
They
I'm going to
could well
escape
beyond. They could escape years ago. I
and
mean,
live happily ever after in, you know,
Myself.
Mexico or somewhere.
I've got to put away the first billion myself. I would escape.
I know, seriously. I'd be like, adios, government.
Goodbye to all that.
Seriously.
You
Yeah,
know?
being a dictator's got to be a lot of stress. It's got to be a tough job.
Yeah,
Yeah. I mean, for crying out loud.
yeah.
You know, he would go to Europe or someplace and buy out a department store and lay in the pool. But he'd get away for a few days, but he'd get back to the same old crap.
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah. Because they feel that it's like a rush, that they can't do good.
They're addicted.
They're addicted to this. And they use that money, like for example in Sudan, they use that money to have supporters.
Mm.
So
Yeah,
everybody, like half of the country are poor. And then you have quarters are supporting the government because what? I'm feeding you. I'm giving you money. You can get whatever you want.
Yeah, when they used to put their money in the Swiss bank, the Swiss banks were so happy when somebody died.
Oh yeah.
You know,
Oh yeah.
because they have an account that nobody knew about,
Yeah,
and they would die,
exactly.
and that money
And
would,
that
would
money
keep
will go
coming
to
in.
the Swiss. Yeah,
You know,
exactly.
so,
Seriously.
Yeah, they supported them.
Whatever happened
Collect
to
the money
Saddam
and
Hussein and
wait for you to
Gaddafi's
die.
money? Do we know?
No.
Because I'm sure they had billions out.
Absolutely.
Probably
Yeah.
so.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk for a bit about what we call the New World Order, not in the crazy Illuminati kind of way, but
Okay.
just in the way that we, as America, perhaps not we, but America views the world as falling into line with us. And specifically, when we're talking about Sudan, I wanted to bridge over to what John Bolton said on Africa, on how we treat Africa. And he doesn't think we're predatory. He doesn't think the U.S. is a predator in Africa. He says Russia and China are predators.
Yeah.
The U.S.
They think what they think we are.
invest in Africa to help African ambitions.
Oh,
That's what he said.
Yeah. Here's a question I have. I mean, I have a feeling that John Bolton is not as stupid as he sounds, and that he has a real understanding that when you have bases, we have bases in 50 out of 54 African countries.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the amount of arms that we sell and the amount of wars that we start in Africa are well known, and Bolton is very much in favor of all of that kind of activity, so he well knows it as well.
Mm-hmm.
And this crap that he sprues to us is the propaganda that we give to our people. The people who are the stupidest are the ones who live in America and listen to the John Boltons.
Yeah.
Because he lies to the American people. He can't lie to the world the way he lies to the American people. That thing that he said about Africa, yes, he said that the Chinese are there and that the Chinese are predatory. That they use predatory loans. Now the world sees China building certain ports and building railroads and doing the Silk Road project. And they see the United States' involvement in Africa as only being military.
Yeah.
Now that's the reality that the world sees.
And undeniably, China is doing this for their own ends. They're doing it for their own
Everybody,
benefit.
I mean, we're sure that there's self-interest, but there's some certain situations that are win-win situations.
Yeah.
And there's certain situations where it's always me and never you.
I think it makes much more sense to build up a country. So sure, they can stand on their own a little, but then they have more to give you.
Oh,
Let's go along with the dictators who are dead now.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them did for their country and did for themselves. That doesn't make them good, but it makes them better than the one that me, get like Omar Bashir and them. But China, I agree with Justin, but everything has a hidden agenda.
We have this situation here where somebody is going to help you build your infrastructure.
Yeah.
And you can capitalize your country and grow.
Mm-hmm.
Or somebody's going to come and take.
And bomb you.
And take.
Yeah.
And take.
Yeah.
Because this is our relationship with Africa.
I will go with China every day. Yeah, I will go with China every day because if those are the only two options.
Yeah, they're coming in and turning one part of your country against the other, and then selling you both weapons.
Yeah, they're doing that. In Sudan, they bought a lot of areas. Now it's owned by China and so many other countries.
Mm-hmm.
But I see what he's trying to say. If those are the only two options I have, if I have an option of building my own country, I will do that. But how is that, like currently in Sudan, how is that going to be possible?
But then also you're getting pressure from any number of outside sources not to allow you to build your own country. So you have to be indebted to whatever superpower.
Well, there's no power. There's no power outside of Sudan that's interested in building Sudan.
Mm-hmm. No.
You know, I mean, if China came along and they worked out, and this is the thing, China, it's just like, what's his name, Xi Jinping? He's visited in Africa 9, 10 different times. He's gone around to these African countries. He's talked with these people. They do negotiations. They write contracts. Okay, I find that decidedly different from going into a country and giving you arms to oppose him.
Yeah. And then
And
turn
that being
around
my
and give
foreign
him
policy.
arms. Yeah.
That is my foreign policy, and it's the only foreign policy, except for taking your coconuts, your bananas, your cocoa, the minerals that I need for my cell phones.
Oh, and bury the lead, your oil.
Yeah, yeah.
Which is the big one.
Which Sudan lost 3/4 of their oil.
But what we talk about when he talks about the New World Order, is that what he is saying is that Africa ultimately is our vassal state, the whole continent, that they will be our market and nobody else can sell there, and that we will dictate who, what, when, and how to those people. And this is what we refer to as the world order. We say here that we do not give out, for example, we give countries some kind of support. Let's say we're $300 million.
Yeah.
And then it turns out that none of it is for the schools.
No.
None of it is for the fishing industry.
Yeah.
None of it is for the Coast Guard so that they can protect the fish off their shore. But it all goes into military to buy tanks and those little jeeps that they use to patrol against the population.
Mm-hmm.
That's our foreign policy. That's what we are contributing, and we're opposing people who are making loans to build railroads.
No, it's an inherently self-destructive foreign policy too, and it doesn't last. Those sales don't last unless you keep cultivating more wars and more wars and more conflicts.
But this is what we are doing. But my point here is like, we're selling this idea. John Bolton is selling this idea, but he's not selling it to the world.
No.
Because the world knows better and the world sees better.
He's selling it to us here because we are narrow vision, narrow minded, and we need to educate the people here that, you know what this is? It could be a modern day slavery. Just another. I mean.
And also, we want to believe that we're the white knights of the world going around and saving everyone for democracy.
Yeah, I used to believe that we wanted to believe that, but I don't believe that we want to believe that anymore.
I think certain individuals...
we act that.
Certain people...
Certain people they sell. Look, I think the most ignorant people in the world are white Americans. Middle class white Americans.
Hey.
Sorry, Justin. He's just stating facts.
I'm the only one here. Hey.
But he said middle age.
Middle class.
Middle class.
Middle class.
God.
They're
God.
Throwing stones today.
Where do they get their cannon fodder? They're so-called heroes.
Yeah.
People who will go and die for their oil bushes every day. Where do those people come from? Who are the people who put out the yellow ribbons in exchange for their kids' lives?
Yeah.
I mean, these are gullible people. These are the stories of heroes. Mm-hmm. These are the stories. I'm going to use Trump's words. He said that we're suckers fighting all around the world. We're suckers fighting all around the world, but not for the reason that Trump said it.
I mean, I gotta say though, I don't think there's anything wrong with being a simple person and just wanting to live your life and trust your government to do the right thing by it.
At some point, if your government is betraying you and betraying you and betraying you, it's like, fool me the first time, shame on you.
Yeah.
But when you fool me the 8th time, come on, please, shame on me. At some point, I got to wake up.
Listening to you say that, it come to mind George Bush when he couldn't even remember this saying, and he was messing it all up. But yeah, like the government is fooling us, and he's not doing it for our own good. And that's remember when I mentioned to you that we are heading down the same road that is happening in Sudan and all that they call it underdeveloped countries. They became underdeveloped. Sudan was one of the richest countries in Africa.
Hey, yeah, absolutely.
So now we're heading towards that.
But we're looking like the same way.
Now.
We're Trump said that we're a third world country when it comes to airports. He's right. The most modern airport in this country, in Denver, is ranked number 28th in the world. Mm-hmm. And you know yourself, I mean, you go look at airports around the world, but we don't even talk about trains and all those other kinds of infrastructures and things. This country is falling behind generations.
Because for whatever reason, and we pretty much know the reason, we don't choose to invest in that.
We don't choose to invest in anything here. Except
the money that goes towards military, or what he's doing now is his golfing, or the timber tantrum that he threw about the wall and shutting down the government.
That's the whole government's fault to me.
$1 billion, he wants all this money.
Listen. Long ago in this country, we started a conversation where we said we have to do something about our immigration policy. Mm-hmm. So let's sit down and work out an immigration policy. Mm-hmm. This is years. Democrats and Republicans, congressmen, senators, legislators, they cannot sit down and talk and do policy about anything anymore. So they don't develop a policy, they don't develop an approach. Everything is catch as catch can, and you have an idiot in the White House. What the heck do you expect?
And it's not that they can't; it's that they won't.
They can't.
They still know how.
I'm not so sure. What have they made a policy about anything recently that they could actually sit down and talk about?
Aid to Saudi Arabia, aid to Israel.
They don't talk about that stuff. That stuff is automatic. No, I'm sorry. If you say Israel, the money is automatic.
The right hand, money from Saudi Arabia.
They all do. They all do. Obama, Bush. I mean, there was nobody closer to Saudi Arabia than the Bushes. They dined together. The Clintons. They're very close to Saudi Arabia. They supported the Clinton Foundation.
As now. I mean, I'm gonna. Well, yeah, we can argue about that for a long time, but
If we would only
it is
argue
not.
degrees. By
I
the
mean,
way.
at least they know it will be degrees. Yeah, at least they have vision. They have something. They have reasoning
No.
behind this. Not Trump. Trump
No,
is doing it for
no.
his own good.
What is the reasoning that
Remember-
Obama got us involved in Yemen?
Remember, I don't.
So
What is the reason that Obama got us involved in
Remember
Yemen?
what we
Or
said
Bush got
about-
us involved in Iraq?
My-
Or the other Bush got us involved in Iraq? Or that Clinton bombed
Remember
Libya?
what we said about
or,
the dictatorships? The one that doing it and giving us some in
those
in
people
the
right
process. Trump is doing it
now.
for
Those
his
people
own
right
good.
now. Trump. I don't have. Believe me, Trump is not doing things for the right reasons, and I'm not arguing for his reasons. My argument is that this is this country that's a problem. Excuse me, but when they, for example, today on the news, they show Trump, and this is what they said: the Trump administration, destroying water in the desert for people who humanitarians have left water for. Excuse me, but that footage that they used was from 2011. It's from the Obama administration. Obama never said a darn thing about it. 2.5 million people were deported. We had the Honduran coup under him. And I'm not talking about Obama. What I'm trying to say is that these problems that we have, the reason those people are migrating, for example, are not something that happened under Trump or happened today, or their relationship with us yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
All these things are a result of our relationships with this world and these micro worlds for the last century. What happened in 2011 in Honduras is what we're experiencing today.
my question
That's
being,
the reason.
how much of a difference is there in President Obama saying, we seek peace with nations of the world, and then choosing to drone strike Yemen severely, and Trump saying, we're going to blow them up, and then drone striking Yemen severely? To what degree is politeness and civility, as they say, really that much of a cover for outright
It's
violence?
not.
It feels
It's not.
like it's just a different flavor.
It's
or
not,
a
but
different
to me it's worse. The hypocrisy to me is destructive. When you talk peace and we're talking 26,000 drone strikes in 1 year
Yeah.
under Obama. I don't think the word peace should come out of his mouth. Excuse me.
I beg to differ, but that's just for another time.
26,000 drone strikes? Excuse me, but he's the one who sold all those arms and who approved of the policy. He's the one who allowed for Libya. He's the one who allowed for Honduras. And we can't stop there. I mean, we could go back and talk about the Clintons. We could go back and talk about H.W. We could go back and talk about Roosevelt.
It's what you call it, a ripple effect.
This is
coming down
this is
for
our
a long time.
our policy from World War II to now.
Mm-hmm.
And if we don't face our policy from World War II to now, when we became an imperialist, homogenous nation, then we're not talking about America.
Mm-hmm.
And we're blaming it on one man who, if we change, we don't change America.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Okay?
That.
When we change him,
You're
it's still
changing the
racist.
system.
You got to change
The system,
the
the
deep
mentality.
state, the system, and the narrative of this so-called democracy in this special place in the world. What do we call ourselves? I forget. We're the special people anyway.
No, the chosen people.
The
No.
chosen.
No, but
That's the show.
Yeah. When I was reading about when Mattis left the administration, or when he was kicked out or drummed out, or whatever really happened, I thought it was a really good description when they described him and McMaster and some other individuals in the Trump administration who were said to be the adults in the room as institutionalists. They believed in the institution. And I think that whole idea of institutionalism, I think Obama and George W. Bush were institutionalist presidents too. They believed in the institution, and they just had to keep everything going. They weren't willing or able to change course. I think Trump, I don't know, I think he's just being manipulated, and I don't think he has any sense for that.
know what he's doing.
But the problem then is recognizably an American problem and not a Trump problem. Trump is one of our problems.
We agree. I agree with
Now,
you when it comes to the root of the problem.
The problem, and not only the root of the problem, but the continuation of the problem. You know, for example, I don't know what his reason is for pulling the troops out of Syria. Some people say it's a maneuver so we can fight Iran. Some people say he actually. I'm not talking about that
I don't
right
think
now.
he has any.
But I don't know. But I have a problem with this. Every doggone senatorial leader who is a Democrat or a Republican, everyone in the House who's a Democrat or Republican, are all standing up for war. They're all standing up to continue what we're doing, which is nothing but obvious catastrophe and war.
I don't know if they just fear their constituents so much that they believe that if they ever go against war or what they call defense spending, and I like to call military spending because it's more accurate, if they're just so scared that they would appear weak and not get reelected, I don't know.
My response to that is like they don't even try.
Nope.
They don't even try. It is like I tickle your foot and you laugh.
Yeah.
You know, Pelosi was out so quick for war. You know, I mean, she was out on that microphone. Boy, oh boy, you can't get that for health care.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
she was right there for war. And every one of them, don't talk about Chuck Schumer. God darn the things that these people have to say for war. You know, our country has better wake up about what its position is. We are not the country of peace as if
I
we're
think that
talking
goes
to
back
Arab.
to what you said about us thinking we're the police of the world, you know, and we just have to be there. Defending, if we want to
That's the
defend
polite way.
the United States, we can fix our
That's the polite way.
area.
That's
you
the
know?
polite way.
Do whatever we can
That's the polite way.
to yeah, that's the polite
To
way.
say that we're going to police, I mean, that we're performing a good function.
Mhm.
What good policing did we do in Vietnam? What policing did we do?
I'm not saying you're not hearing me. I'm not
Okay.
saying this is a good thing.
Yeah, no,
I'm
no.
saying that's what
okay.
we
Yeah, but
present
I'm just
ourselves.
recognizing. I'm saying
Yeah.
that's the good way of saying it. I'm saying that's
Yeah,
the polite way.
Well, that's what we have to say now. This is what they're trying to
Because we're not
to
policing.
make the excuse that we are protecting the
Yeah.
United States
There.
and protecting other countries.
Yeah,
We can
Yeah.
use our resources, protect
Yeah.
our country,
Yeah.
and just mind our own business.
if it was
Simple.
defense.
Wouldn't that be nice? But then where do you get all those new military contracts? Where do you
Yeah.
get all
If it
those
was
new
defense.
orders for tanks,
Yeah,
for drones,
That's
for
one of the
missiles?
reasons.
And when that is your bread and butter, when that is your economic fuel to the fire,
Yeah.
you're not. You're going to keep going
But
around
you
the
know,
world and
here's
cultivating
the thing.
So
conflict.
let's just be
Like-
honest. It all boiled down to what?
but
Money.
why did
That's
that?
it. Done.
Why did the arms industry become our bread and butter? Why did we become an armed industry dealer in the world, and we could have made other decisions to sell other things?
Because it seemed easier, I guess.
That's
It's-
a good
they're-
excuse.
There are markets you can cultivate.
That's a good excuse.
Just like when you say there will always be need for hospitals and medical care, there will always be need for food. Those are the two areas that you can have a good business at. There will always be fighting. People are always gonna need guns. People are always gonna need weapons. So the United States is using
I don't like to
this
believe that.
as money.
Well, let's
I
make
don't
sure
like
that
to believe that.
They
That's
make
what-
sure of it.
That's exactly. I think that what we're doing
Listen,
is
the big
advocating.
pharma. Just let me
If we
just
advocated peace.
say one thing to make it clear. Like now, do you truly believe that they can't invent anything to cure cancer and HIV and all those diseases? No.
there are purported drugs that have been already found.
Yeah, right.
It's not
And,
really
and
sure.
they were crushed.
Right.
So what Justin is saying, and I agree 100% with, we will find a way. If we have a business plan, which to me, it is a business plan. That war, it's business plan. Just like I know that I need to make sure that I'm going to always get profit. I'm going to always make sure I talk in your ear, Justin against him. I'm going to talk in your ear against him. And I'll come and hand you a gun. And behind his back, I'm going to hand you a gun and say, you know what?
Okay.
I'm supporting you.
That's the decision that you made.
Go fight.
It's
Done.
not necessary.
And
that-
give me money.
It's not
Give you money.
necessary that you have to do that,
No.
right? That's a decision.
I mean,
you
yeah,
made,
you don't have-
That this is what I'm going to exploit.
Yeah.
And my question is, why do we decide to exploit that?
Greed.
But there's other ways that we can satisfy our greed.
But
It doesn't
who
have
is-
to be that way.
That's what you're thinking. But to them, it is not
But-
like that. This
but there's
is an
something-
easier
and
way.
this is, okay, easier way. Here we go. Here we
Yeah,
go.
yeah.
Maybe it's an easier way.
Yeah.
But my point is like, it's not the only way.
Yeah.
and that we make a choice about selling weapons or selling wheat. You know, that's a choice that we make. Like we're making a choice now about whether or not to sell fossil fuel or go to
Wheat,
green.
I'm not going to
It's
get
not
profit
like, you know,
from wheat.
Well, you know,
I'm just talking to you, not me, Hagir. I'm talking to you about, that's the reality,
no,
right?
you're making the rationalization to make this decision. I can make the rationalization. We make decisions on the basis of principles.
But we can also find
That's the
things.
difference.
We can also find things where
Yeah.
profits and principles coincide. Although I would also make the opinion that really just in general pursuing profit, period, can just be inherently corrupt itself.
Yeah.
Well, look, I've come to a conclusion here.
Okay?
We're a country that decides that we're going to rule the world, that if we're going to sell weapons and kill people, you know, that we're not going to take care of our schools and roads and bridges, that we don't care about our citizens necessarily, but they're good cannon fodder. But when they come back from the war, we don't need them anymore, so we don't have to treat their post-traumatic stress syndrome. You know, I'm making a statement that this is the kind of country we are, because these are the things that we do. And we need to add these things up and look at the kind of country we are compared to the kind of narrative that we create. We are not the white hats in John Bolton's narrative.
Yeah.
You understand?
Yeah.
In reality, we're the people who perpetrate war in Africa. We're not there for peace.
Yeah.
You know,
No, we wanted to take the mantle of the British Empire. And my next section on the British people who just seek that glory of empire again just blows my mind, as if they forgot what the empire was really like. As if they don't care about the people who were in those colonies, who were part of the Commonwealth, as they call it. And even that one lady who claimed that the British Empire actually deserved all the gold medals and all the silver medals and bronze medals won at the Olympics one year. She said, well, win one for us, as if the people living in those countries would so gladly just, genuflect with no pressure.
Let me tell you how bad it is in Sudan now. People are actually referring to when they were under the British Empire, those were the good days.
wow.
So
yeah.
that's
man.
how. Yeah,
Man.
I mean, my father, my family fought and for the independence of Sudan, and now to come and face a time that when you sit down and say those were the good times, where we had infrastructure. That's what you said about dictatorship. They were there.
Yes.
They're not there for our own good, but they were making profit. But in the same time, they built Khartoum University. I mean, they didn't build it, but they built a lot of good places that are still standing. So people look at it and say the same thing that lady said, that the British Empire, it's good, right? I heard it before. I just heard it recently.
So
I'm not surprised.
No, that's wild. I guess I just didn't know also how little they taught about the British Empire to students in Great Britain, and how much they just whitewash it about
Just
the
like
actual
what we're
atrocities
doing now
that they
here.
do.
And about
The idea that we're trying to
slavery.
change slavery into what, economic indentureship?
Yeah.
What do you mean change it? We had slavery and it's always been slavery and it always will be slavery. We could call it different things.
They're
at different
trying.
times,
Oh
but
no,
it's
they're
still
trying.
slavery.
They're trying to remove it from the curriculums. They're
Yeah.
trying to remove. I mean, they did remove a lot. They're not teaching it as it's supposed to.
Yeah.
Same way, even in Sudan, they're not teaching
It's
about
also-
the empire.
The thing in Britain, one of the things in Britain is like the people are feeling so low. I mean, the average British citizen has real problems these days. Even with his image about being British.
Yeah.
And he don't even know who is British anymore because they've been so many places in the world that everybody follows them home and they don't look around them. And this black guy is the champion. What are you talking about? I mean, they're really screwed up, and I could see where it said, "Boy, you talk about the glory of the empire."
Yeah.
Oh, that sounds nice.
Yeah.
Sounds really nice.
Right now they're talking about income disparity, and whether or not they should get rid of those nuclear weapons, and whether or not they should really continue into Brexit, and what about the poor people who are burning up in the houses that have, I mean, and then you come along and you say, hey, there was a glory day, it was a time, and when you sing the old songs.
The bad, good old days.
Wow.
That British Empire, right?
Yeah.
The one that Churchill was fighting to maintain.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Okay. So you got a topic here entitled "Peace on Earth." What's that all about?
I wasn't.
Oh, is that where you just were just calling for peace on Earth in general? Okay. All right. Hey,
I hope so.
you know what? That's better. That's
Peace.
better.
Right.
Let's just
Go
sit
for
here
peace.
and call
You're like-
and make a call for peace on Earth because that's important. That's pretty
That
much
could happen
that's the whole
actually
point.
if we go back to what you said
Yeah, I hear
about the
nuclear.
system.
Right.
I hear a nuclear winter is very peaceful.
Suppose that we put as much energy, into peace as we put into war. Could you imagine such a thing?
Yeah, but if we call things as they are, truly are, and if we educate, like you said, I agree with you, we cannot change. Like now, when people say, all right, we want Omar al-Bashir out of the government. No, I want the whole government out.
Yes.
Because he's not the
Right.
only one, it's a system.
Exactly.
And I want new people. I don't want anybody, not even me. I'm old. I want the young generation to come and take over. I will be there to help them, and other people. They need all ages, like Justin said, because you need that for wisdom,
And memory.
for experience and
Yeah.
all of that. But education, again, you need to let people know about what you just said. Why wars? Why people are benefiting from continuation of wars? Why nuclear weapon, like chemical weapons and nuclear weapon, the one that bomb people in Darfur and in different regions? Why we should stop that?
When we talk about chemical weapons, we should always talk about Agent Orange.
Yeah.
And those chemicals that we depleted uranium.
Yeah.
Those things that we use, because we actually are the biggest user of chemical weapons ever, historically
Yeah.
speaking.
Yeah.
Especially at our border.
But if you say, especially now,
Tear gas, you
if
can't
you
use
say,
in war.
yeah.
It's illegal, but
They're using it now in Sudan, and guess what? Those tear gas they threw at the protesters, they're expired in 2004, 2009. Expired tear gas. So can you imagine the effect that were really, and who was supplied by?
we
Yep.
make different grades.
Whatever we don't use in our chemical weapon here, and they're almost expiring, we ship them to the Middle East.
Hey,
That's my gift to
So we
you.
give you choices. What kind of tear gas you want?
Do you want the one expired in 2009 or the one expired in
or
2013?
the no more tears version.
Or the no more- yeah.
That expands fast, that expands slow.
They were
that
throwing
expands
dogs,
intensity, all
bomb, like the colorful tear gas and bombs at protesters. The colorful one that makes more harm,
Mhm.
and those were coming from where? None
Yeah.
but yours.
And the worst
Yeah.
weapons in the world.
Sincerely yours.
What I say is the worst weapons ever invented and used extensively by man was invented and used by Dow Chemical. It's
Yeah.
napalm. You drop something on people that burns them to death.
Yeah.
That's the cruelest thing you can
Yeah.
do.
Wow.
And we specialize in
exists.
napalm.
And they're
napalm,
using it.
you know,
They
oh
used
my
it. They
goodness.
used it in Darfur. They used it in Nuba Mountain.
Cluster bombs and those things that the kids are attracted to that we use over and over again. The mines that we won't join the agreement with the rest of the world to do away with.
Yeah.
This is the us that I'm talking about that we have to do something about because it's affecting us as a people. We are a callous people anymore.
Callous, yeah, but also just numb, desensitized.
I like that better. Desensitized.
I think it's all true. I think that one can definitely lead to the
Callous.
When you say to somebody, how many kids are going to die in Yemen today? And they look at you.
other. Where's Yemen? What is that?
How about that congressman who voted on that doggone farm bill to shut off discussion about voting on stopping our support of Saudi Arabia and Yemen? And what did that congressman say? He didn't know anything about Yemen. He says, Yemen, I didn't know a damn thing about it. This guy's a congressman.
Yeah. Those are the ones who are making
He's
decisions.
a congressman.
And they do it on purpose, though.
Yeah,
Put out bills that are too long to read in too short a time for anyone
But come
to read
on,
them.
please. Anybody who is in leadership has a responsibility to learn certain things.
Mhm.
You know, and something like, I mean, how long has it been? 3 years
Or more.
or more? Come on, please. I can't give him no excuse.
It is not personally affecting him, so.
You know, no, you know, but he has no right to leadership.
But
Because
it's
these are the things he's supposed to know about.
But it's okay. He'll keep making his money while
Well,
the
your
government
president
is.
doesn't know half of the countries or names, and
No, he doesn't either. I mean,
half of the things.
right.
So you know what? Congress is a little bit step down
No,
than the
yeah, but you know
president.
something? But here's one thing that we don't deal with. If we don't understand or we don't read the Constitution doesn't have an imperial president. You know, basically the Congress runs the country,
Yeah.
making the laws, and the president
That's
enforces
not
the
how
law.
it is right now.
No, we have the imperial presidency. Right now we're waiting for the president to decide what's going to happen at the border.
Yeah.
The Congress is a meeting to decide what's going to happen
Yeah.
at the border and tell the president.
No.
You know, the Congress
That's
is
why I
supposed to
said this
represent
is
the
a
people.
different.
This is not
different
a constitutional government.
Era. No,
You know,
this is different.
This is the era of the imperial presidency, and it's the era of the irresponsible congressy. You know, because they refuse to take responsibility for anything.
But it's okay. They'll keep making their money while they shut everything down.
Yeah.
That was an interesting thing I saw here in Pennsylvania because they were talking about the budget, and they had this surplus budget. And you know the reason for the surplus budget, $138 million? You know what the justification is for keeping that? In case the budget doesn't pass, they can still pay the legislators and their staffs. The hell with the rest of us, you understand what I'm saying?
Oh, they're always going to look out for number one. That
They
should tell
got a
you.
real incentive.
That should tell you how they make their decisions and how they
Do I look
pass laws.
surprised?
They just look out for themselves first.
Nothing
And if
paid me
it's
anymore.
themselves only, it's themselves only.
It is not.
I have here that I see 2019 as the year of the birth of crisis.
We've been birthing crisis for
I
such a long
agree.
time now.
Yeah,
I
I
agree.
am.
I agree. We've been birthing crisis for a long time. Now it's going to be born.
Yeah.
I'm starting with the French. You know, these yellow vests, they're in Hong Kong and Taiwan and Tel Aviv and
Yeah.
Germany and England, Brussels. You know, and all of them are talking about the same thing. They're talking about the inequality in terms of the quality of life. The inequality of wealth, the inequality of income, the inequality of access. You know, this is a common theme of all these protesters
Yeah.
throughout the world. It's becoming throughout the world, as in Sudan.
In Sudan, yeah, inequality is a big thing.
Okay.
I mean, was and is still is a big thing.
And well, I'm seeing in 2019 as this yellow vest thing rises, this becomes a worldwide discussable, overt issue.
Because certainly inequality is not on the decline. It is on the rise,
on the rise.
and it is affecting people who undoubtedly thought they were beyond it. They thought, oh, I'm comfortably in the middle class. I don't have to worry about this. But then, poof, there goes the middle class.
Yes.
Pretty much around the world.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I mean, frankly, they should have thought of that even while they were comfortably in the middle class.
Yeah.
Just people don't do that.
Well, there was a time when the unions had a lot of people, and there were certain things that were happening in the labor relationship in economics. As you know, in this country, the financiers, the banksters, they took over and they destroyed the labor unions.
Mm-hmm.
And during this struggle, when the labor unions had an opportunity to talk about the banksters and the financiers and whatnot, they wouldn't do it. If they had 600 people in their union, they were concerned about their 600 people, not the other people in the labor force. And then they had 400 people. They were concerned about the 400 people. Then they were concerned about the 300 people. You know? And now there's hardly any labor union to talk about. You know? We're going to be all concerned about the common issues that affect us all, or we're going to be concerned about nothing, because if we're selfishly only concerned about ourselves, we end up alone.
Yeah.
I mean, it's...
Yeah, no, it's when I remember back in 2017, we said we were on the precipice to collapse, decline, you know, that deep calm before the storm. And yeah, I mean, there have been ebbs and flows, and it seems like it's been constantly building and constantly building. But the proverbial dung hitting the fan, is what you're
Yeah.
saying is going to be the 2019 experience?
Okay. Let's not develop a picture where all of a sudden there's a mudslide. You know, there's a thing of mud coming at you. You know, we're still talking about the dynamics now between these governments and these protesters, between these demonstrators, between the classes, etc.
Mm-hmm.
These dynamics go back and forth, of course. You know, when you go out in the streets, now in France, they're ordering 1,000 more those things that shoot the rubber bullets.
Yeah.
You know, so when they come out in week 7 or week 8.
Well, let me just say one thing about this, and I'll let you go back. In France, with all this protest, no death.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And
Yes.
in Sudan, in the first
Yes.
day,
Yes.
they have 54
Oh yeah.
Wow.
dead.
And you even have
Because
people
they don't use the bullet, the rubber bullet.
Right,
they
they
use
use a real-
live, real bullet. And
Yeah.
they don't shoot you to injure you. They shoot you in the head, in the neck,
Uh-huh.
to kill you.
Sure.
So it's sniper
Right.
style.
And you even see in France police officers putting on yellow
Putting
vests.
on yellow
This is-
vest
this is
and,
where-
and saying that
This is a
basically.
big change.
Yeah.
And then you see Macron trying to raise their wages more to shut them up.
Well, you
Yeah.
see Macron making a big bad mistake and also illustrating the stupidity and the lack of understanding. You talk about Trump being stupid. Okay, here's a guy who he puts the burden of green of climate change on the backs of the people who don't have anything.
Yeah.
He gives them a fuel tax that he's going to use to. So then when they go out and protest, what does he do? He says, I'm going to remove the fuel tax.
Yeah.
Now what they said was, take away the damn tax breaks you gave to the rich people.
Yeah.
You're going to stop fighting now climate change? But you're going to let the rich people keep their money. You do anything to avoid taking the money from the rich people.
Yeah.
You gave the rich people a wealth tax break. They're saying that is the problem. Your attitude towards the rich and your attitudes towards the rest of us.
Yeah.
That is the essence of the problem. And he won't accept that as the essence of the problem. He thinks the essence of the problem is that they were complaining about a fuel tax.
Yeah.
That was the catalyst.
Yeah.
That's not the complaint.
Yeah.
You know, he's as dumb as Trump. But we got a lot of dumb people around here. I mean, May isn't showing herself as being so smart. And that lady in Germany, she's on her way out real quick.
Yeah.
Yeah, and interestingly you say dumb because from any number of sources he is reputedly a genius. But there's a difference between that and being able to manage a country in the interest of the people effectively, and he's not. He is a business. He was a banker to start, and he is still a banker. And I don't mean to, crush the hopes of some people in this country, but Beto fills that picture pretty accurately too. He is a financier. He is backed by big business, and I don't think he would bring us much better than.
No.
Where are we at? Yeah.
No, well, look, we have a situation where obviously what's happened in the since World War II, is that the banks and the financiers have taken over everything.
Mm-hmm.
You cannot make a decision unless it's based on money.
Mm-hmm.
Any decision.
Mm-hmm.
Am I going to open this plant, close this plant, clean up this earth? Am I going to breathe tomorrow? How much is it worth? Everything, every decision that we make, everything in this world has been given a financial value, a money value.
Mm-hmm.
Trees and even the oxygen you breathe has been given. The money people have taken, every decision, only money decides.
Mm-hmm.
And only profit, therefore, is the proper answer, regardless of what it is. If you're cheating somebody, if you make a profit, it's okay.
Yeah.
If you, whatever it is that you're doing, if you make a profit, it's okay, because that's the way we lined up our values in this world today.
And when that is your prime and central value, then your worldview and your perspective is just incomparably dead. There's just no life or hope or love to it.
I think you lose worldview. I think you lose worldview. When we used to go to school and get educated and whatnot, we used to have room in there for men of letters, just an educated man, people who talked philosophy, people who wrote poems. We had so many different perspectives to talk about something. If you were a scientist and you talked about the flower, you talked about the petal and the stem and what these functions were. If you were a poet, you talked about something else. But we had two different perspectives about the flower.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have poets anymore. like that. We don't listen to poets.
And that is purposeful.
We don't listen to philosophers.
It is intentional.
You know, we don't even have real listening skills when it comes to social scientists anymore. You know, we talked about the sociologists and, you know, the way societies function, the social psychologists, the C. Wright Mills and all those kinds of people. We don't talk about those kinds of things anymore. The only thing we talk about is whether or not cutting down that tree will give us a profit. Cutting down the Amazon, will it be profitable? We don't talk about the depletion of oxygen. We talk about how much we can make from the trees or from the red oil that we're going to sell.
Yeah.
They don't even enter in our discussion anymore. Only money. You know, and that's what these people are up in arms about. The German Left Party, the guy says, you know, they know what they did to us. He's talking about the banksters and the government relationship with the banksters. He says they know what they did to us, you know. You know, he said they should be scared now. These are the yellow vests coming out in Germany.
Yeah.
So those who envision something like that happening in America, firstly, our police are much more well armed and willing to use force.
Yeah.
And much
not kinder or nicer.
Much
Or
less
nice.
likely to actually take up, in my opinion, arms against their own government. But what you were saying before is now,
right,
to this point,
right.
Say 5-10 years from now, when it's bad for them too, maybe it's a different story.
You're going to have a different story when people are hungry. Believe me, you're going to have a different story when people can't find clean water to drink.
Yeah.
You know, when people go out into the streets and you kill them, the first time it's going to be tragic.
Yeah.
You know, but when you keep killing people, now you're creating martyrs. You know, I may as well be a martyr if I can't be here doing well. You know, I mean, we're going to come to that ourselves. And I say this is the beginning of this crisis.
Yeah.
You know, in 2019, you know, a lot of these questions are going to become on the table, and the box is going to be open. And you know what happens when Pandora's box is open?
Or you just close it.
Yeah.
You can just close it and you'll be fine. So, all right, we got like
how much?
Half an hour left.
Okay.
If that's good. So I don't know. What do we want to jump to? Let's jump to something.
Let me say this before we jump to something else, because I had here that one of the things that we come to a crisis about is our media and our newspapers and whatnot. And one of the illustrations I had here was this false flag attack by the Democrats in Georgia. What was that guy's name? Moore? That nasty Republican guy?
Yeah.
Okay, but the Democrats spent $100,000 and put out a lot of bots that they made look like Russian bots.
Mm-hmm.
And then they accused the man of being supported by Russia. You know. And the thing that really got me wasn't so much even that they did this. I was a little bit surprised that they would care about a Georgia, just simply a Georgia race, you know, but they did this. And then they came out and accused the guy of being, being like Trump, you know, being a lover of Russia and all this kind of stuff, and that is what they used against him, and it was a false flag. They did this falsely. What bothered me is New York Times investigated this, and the way they wrote the story was that this thing was done as a secret experiment to discover how the Russians were able to do it. You know, that kind of silly, stupid rationalization of crimes that we are committing when we're supposed to be practicing democracy. As long as we keep excusing it, go ahead.
Russia is not responsible for every problem that we have in this country. They are not responsible for Black Lives Matter. They are not responsible for Standing Rock. They are not responsible for the situation in Flint with the water crisis. They are not responsible for people feeling some sort of way about the legitimacy of the police force in America. This is not a Russian-created thing. These are just problems that we've had. I don't know. It's part of our issues.
Look at the difference here. This is not just saying something. This is doing something and blaming it on somebody else. This is acting.
Mhm.
This is doing something. This is committing a crime and blaming it on somebody else. And then excusing it in our media as if this is okay because it's a secret experiment and Russia therefore makes it okay. We are committing a crime and excusing a crime. This is what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about Russia. To hell with Russia. Look at what we're doing to ourselves and our democracy. You know, we spent this money to put on Twitter and Facebook and invent these whatever to convince people that Russia was doing something when we ourselves are doing it to ourselves.
Well, Russia's doing something, and we're doing something. Yeah.
We're doing to ourselves and blaming somebody else. And that, regardless of what Russia, I'm not talking about Russia. But there's a significant difference when it's okay for us to do these things to ourselves, as long as we have somebody else to blame. We turn a corner. We turn an important corner. You know, when we won't look at our behavior and judge it for what it is. We had this morning again. Like I said, they had these videos from 2011 of these people kicking over these water things, and we said it like it was yesterday, and it wasn't yesterday. You know, and they knew that, and yet they still put it on the air, and still told the American people a blatant lie, and it was okay. Nobody's standing up in arms today saying, hey, you know, our media is dissing us, our media is doing us wrong, because our media is something that we've got to, in the long run, be able to trust as standing up against those people who would do us harm, i.e. government. We don't have that media. And we're not recognizing that we don't have that media. And because we don't have that media...
We do. We have that media. It's just not major media. I mean,
Yeah.
we got Democracy Now!, we got The Intercept. We have individual, smaller scale news sources that do report
It's major
honestly.
somewhere else, but not here.
Sure.
And you have guys like Assange,
NPR.
Yeah.
and you have whistleblowers who still come out and face these harsh
Okay,
penalties.
now here's
for
another one. Crisis
doing what
in
they've
2019. Assange. 2019. You know why? Because he's not gonna be in the Ecuadorian ministry all 2019. He's gonna be out.
Where?
He's gonna come here.
Yeah.
And we're gonna have a secret trial. In a democracy. We're gonna take a journalist with a secret indictment and have a secret trial. And we're gonna pretend that that's democratic. We're gonna pretend that our values are the ones that the world should admire.
That's what we've been pretending.
Speaking of American values, jumping far ahead
Okay.
Yeah.
to our current situation with the border.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
However we want to talk about the wall, talk about shutting down the government in order to force people into funding the wall, talk about the $15 million GoFundMe that some guy is using
Yeah.
to raise money for the wall,
Mhm.
or most pointedly to talk about the two adolescent kids, and I'm sure there are more, but the Guatemalan boy who was 8 years old, Felipe Gomez Alonso, who died while in Border Patrol custody. He was admitted with a common cold, and he kept getting more ill and just was not treated and died. This is on the back of the 7-year-old Guatemalan girl who died on December 8th. Just this cold and inhumane treatment of people who are interned. I mean, let's not call it anything else. They are interned and imprisoned by mostly by private prisoneers, mostly by people like Core Civic, formerly CCA, mostly by that private prison system that we run here. Any number of these things we could talk about, but I think this is most exemplifying of the just coldness and brutality with which we're handling the border crisis at this point.
Yeah. No, when you say this point as if, you know, there've been better points, but I'll pretend that there were in order to discuss this point. From 1924, we invented that border guard, those people down there. They've been the most racist and disrespectful organization agency that we've ever had in this country. You know, we can go through periods in this country where we talk about, you want to talk about mistreatment and deportations and all that kind of thing. You know, that's why we came up with marijuana laws in this country to get rid of a bunch of Mexicans. You know, we've been doing these kinds of things back and forth. We've been letting them in the country to pick our fruit and then kicking them out afterwards. And we still won't sit down and have any kind of comprehensive discussion about it. But yeah, that's what we do. And that's what we have been doing. And now the one thing that I like about it is that this time it's overt and obvious and clear. You know, the last time we had those immigrants come up from there, it was unclear. You know, the relationship between our foreign policy and immigration, we never talked about. And we still really, truly aren't talking about what happened in Honduras and what happened in Guatemala that puts those people on the road. And we're not talking about another aspect of it too, and that's climate change, which is going to become a very much more important point because it's going to force continued migration from now forever, all around the world from these areas into places like this. So what I'm saying is that we're going to have to really develop a policy as a country as to what we are about, so that we don't treat these things as a catch-can situation. The reason that is such chaos down there is because we have no position. I had a Christmas party down here last week.
Oh, that's nice.
And yeah, but you know, before the party, I went over there to see that the tables were set up. The tables were set up. I made sure they got the tablecloths. You know, I made sure they got. You know, and then when the people came, I greeted the people. You know, and then this lady who runs that thing, what's her name? She's coming down there today. I mean, that's like me waiting until some people ate and got food poisoning at the party, and then I go see what's going on. The lady who runs the border guards, I can't think of her name.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You know, she's going to visit today to see what the problems are. Like I said, that's like you go before the party to see if the tables are set up.
Yeah.
You go before the people get there to see if the room is clean.
Yeah.
You understand? You go before the food is served to make sure that the temperature was right.
No, but just sheerly bypassing it off to private prison companies like Core Civic, you show how much you really care about the people. It is nothing.
Well, that's the point. Is that you don't care about the guests to your party. If you don't care and you're the one in charge, then
wouldn't it be nice if we considered them guests? Wouldn't that be quite a step forward instead of violators?
That was my suggestion. If the guests come
thugs?
here, I mean, we used to say, "Send me your tired, your poor, your hurdle message."
Well,
we welcome them as guests.
is that the foundation of the whole people who think they're following Christianity or religious, or this is the foundation of us here becoming a country of immigrants?
The reality, of course, is that we had a bunch of white people come here and kill a bunch of Indians and import a bunch of slaves, and then let a lot of other white people come and become citizens, but we denied it to a lot of any other kinds of people, whether they were close to us, as Mexicans are, or further away, as they might be a gypsy or two in Hungary.
Yeah.
I mean, we have to develop something akin to a caring policy in order for anything to change. And that's going to be up to a Congress, a full Congress, and full leadership, and people finally getting off their haunches and saying something, doing something, creating something.
No, but you are largely correct. As a Congress, they have not legislated anything significant for years. They've not passed anything significant for a long, long time.
They haven't even talked about it. Every time they try to talk about it, they walk out on each other.
It's as though, and I'm sure there are other reasons, trying to implement the strategy that if I don't win all the time, you're going to win none of the time. Instead of saying, I'll win 60, you win 40.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Or I'll win 70, you win 30. It's
compromise.
It's that whole take your ball and go home mentality.
Okay.
Like you'll pass a third of the things you want to pass, but your opponents will pass none of the things that they want to pass. So that's worth
and yet,
it.
none of the things that they have even considered passing are things that are important things to the people. You know, they haven't passed a school bill or a housing bill. I mean, anything. I mean, we went through a period where they took all the money away from people because all these banks cheated the people, and we never addressed that. We never sat down as a Congress or as a people and said, boy, our people really got the shaft. What can we do for them?
No, we bailed out the banks. We gave them billions upon billions of dollars.
We're still bailing out the
and they're
banks.
back to doing what they were because those regulations were removed or they were never enacted.
And also, no, they were never, well, they did put regulations after they gave the money. Excuse me, but you meant the regulations before you give the money, but they did after you give the money. And then they didn't discuss the issue except they discussed it financially. You know, they didn't discuss the issue in any other way. For example, we could say, how about having a discussion from the point of view of fairness? How about having a discussion from the point of view of what capitalism is? You know, capitalism itself says that if you're a weak sister and you fail, you're supposed to fail, buddy. I ain't supposed to bail you out and that you rebuy your stock. That's what they said. We got a free capital market, right? Well,
Yeah.
Then when they go down,
survival of the fittest BS. It is BS. It is BS because that isn't actually how evolutionary biology worked anyway.
No, but the other point about it is it's never been a free market. You know, markets are never free, and the other thing about it is like, what did you give them the money for? You know, seriously. I mean, what they did was create a whole bunch of products that were not real products. They gave away loans and they treated people and they had all kinds of things where they packaged and repackaged and none of this stuff was real and some of it was absolutely downright criminal. I mean, so, and we even bought, the taxpayers bought these bad products.
Yeah.
Getting them off the hook.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
You know, so I mean, on what basis did we make the decision? Not on the basis of fairness, not on the basis of capitalism, on the basis of buddyism. On the basis that all of the people who are in your cabinet came from Wall Street. On the basis that you run with Goldman Sachs, and on the basis when you stop being president, we're going to give you big money for speeches.
Which is true. And it's where the arising of the term crony capitalism really comes into effect. You seek to benefit yourselves and your friends and your associates and people who can benefit you. And you keep benefiting each other and keep just stamping down anyone else.
Okay. How about when you look out at companies and you see that the only financial thing that they could do with the money anymore is not to go back and manufacture more things because the market is saturated, but they go back and buy other companies and lay people off.
Yeah.
And that's what they did.
Yep.
Mergers is the way to make money these days, not producing.
I mean, look at Sears as they pay their top executives millions in severance and bonus packages and refuse to pay the benefits of tens of thousands of workers.
Yes.
Just because they can get away with it.
And look at the companies that buy those companies. I mean, look what happened to Toys R Us. You know, they bought Toys R Us and sold it off and then bankrupted and now they're fat and happy and it's just gone. That's all. They're on to the next thing. There's an interesting book out where he talks about Wall Street as a pyramid, you know. What's the name of that? I'll get the name of it. I'll talk about it the next time. But he talks about Wall Street and the stock market as being nothing but a pyramid scheme. That the only way that you make money on the stock market is by selling a product that you bought to somebody else for more money. And if it's worth nothing, it's worth nothing. Because as soon as you buy a stock, it's worth zero. You know, it's not worth any money. It's worth zero. What you can sell it for is what it's worth.
They will find someone who is willing. That's how it is. Isn't that the truth?
You know, well, his notion in his book is that the Ponzi scheme is running out. You know, that we're due for that whole scheme, that whole pyramid to actually come crashing down in 2019 might be the beginning of that.
We'll see. I don't know.
It's interesting.
I just never know. I think they got a lot of roots. I think their roots run very deep.
Yeah.
Yeah, but there it doesn't in a way. I mean, you look at the stock market and you look at what happened in the stock market in the last couple of weeks. Based on what? That it dropped to its lowest ever in how many years? 80 years. Then it did its highest turnaround in one day, 1,000. That's the Dow, and then they had an up and down day. But see, the point is that it's still whether or not you make a whole bunch of money one day and or another particular day, it's still a bear market. It's still a losing market, and that has nothing to do with the economy. I.e., consumers bought more than they ever did before. In how many years for Christmas?
Yeah, that black market though is a record breaker, and some, if not all of us, probably contributed to that record breaking.
Yeah.
Because I don't think it's any sort of moral impingement. It's just kind of what we do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hold on, we got like 10 minutes. What do you want to talk about? Hagir?
I think you covered. That won't be done in 10 minutes. You guys talk about the border. I mean, it's all tied up. What I just wanted to say is what you just said and what Justin just said and what we've been saying all along. It's a one vicious cycle or circle. It's all tied up.
It's all tied
it doesn't
together.
look
Yeah.
like that to many people, because you say there's a problem in Sudan, there's a problem in Yemen, Syria, but we're all in this together. It is just it's a one big world, seriously.
Yeah, right.
And what we do here does affect people there.
Yes.
And does affect us in return.
Yes.
And it's to solve this issue, we don't want just to remove the government here or in Sudan. We want the people to understand the systematic oppression, the killing, the using the money, the reasoning behind all this evil, and try to fight it the right way, educating people on how to protect themselves and how to not just follow things blindly and say, yes, there is a war, and because my president said because of the money, oh, it is because of the money or the oil, or because they're planning to kill us, or they send a video and said this. No, there is a reason. And most of the time it's personal gain to those governments. So just don't follow people blindly.
No. And that brings up another point to me, is that one of the things, see, I'm an old guy, that we're losing in our society is critical thinking.
Yeah.
In Russia, we used to have people who thought about Russia, and people who wrote about Russia, whether we were in a Cold War or not.
Yeah.
But we don't have any Russian experts anymore. If you go to school now and try to learn Russian, people will look suspiciously at you.
Yeah.
They did, But what I'm saying is we're coming around to a point where we're taking words away from people.
Yeah.
You can't say these certain things, and you can't have these certain thoughts. We're trying every way that we can to stop people from thinking critically. Especially thinking critically about their government.
Yeah.
They'll take you off of Facebook or take you off of whatever because you criticize, for example, police. That's this kind of society that we are becoming, and if we don't guard against that, we won't have anybody to talk to.
Yeah.
So it seems like when
To
you
bring along
see
with us.
police brutality, you can go one of two ways. You can get probably a bunch of ways. But the two ways that stand out are you could either seek to correct the problem of the brutality itself through training and change of focus and by example, or you can seek to stamp out the criticism of that brutality. And if we're going the way of just stamping out the criticism of that brutality, that's a pretty clear indicator of what we're trying to do.
I want to say before we go, what's that? Makuna Matata.
Hakuna Matata.
Okay, you know that?
It means no worry.
No worries.
For the rest of
in
your
Swahili,
days.
right?
Yes.
It's Swahili, right?
Hmm?
Did you know this, that Disney owns that word, those words.
Yeah.
This is their trademark.
Well,
They went to another country and took their
Took their
language, took their culture, and trademarked it.
Yeah, it seems like a good Disney thing.
Yeah.
That sounds about right.
money.
I mean, we have no respect anymore. I mean, you go there, it's bad enough you stole their culture for your movie.
We're that good. We're that good. You stole the culture, stole the words, and you trademark it.
And you trademark it. Remember when Donald Trump
And
tried
you'll
to,
have a good day.
he tried to trademark
Yeah.
you're fired. Remember that one?
Yeah.
He tried to trademark you're fired.
Yeah.
They said you can't do that.
Which would be cool because
Yeah.
no one could ever get fired again.
Exactly, yeah. Oops, I can't fire you because this is a Donald Trump thing.
Yeah.
But here we go, where you could go into another country and you could just take their words, take their language,
Yeah,
and just steal it and make it your own, and make a profit from it.
yeah,
And that's what this whole thing is about to me. You know, it's like you can monetize everything,
yeah.
and if you can profit from it, it's good.
Yeah.
It's yours.
It's yours.
Yeah.
Right on.
Yeah.
That's the world summed up.
Wow.
Hakuna Matata. Yeah.
What a wonderful phrase.
What a wonderful phrase that we can't say anymore.
Ain't no passage. Yeah, it means no worries for the rest of your days. And that's what we wish to you, even though it's not going to happen. Because we are in a world of worry and hopelessness and despair unless we rise above, unless we transcend, and unless we reach out. And we want to thank everyone for listening and for watching today. We really want to thank Hagir for coming on and giving us a lot more insight into the situation in Sudan. It was a great learning experience. I just hope it encourages people to learn more and to actually speak about this and to get this seen, because if you look at the main network news, you don't see this. You see no reports of this. Maybe you see it every now and then, but you see no reports of this. And it's got to get out there, and it's got to get the fact that this is a genuine revolutionary movement and not just some U.S. backed, overthrow.
Yeah.
It's a real thing.
Amen.
Amen.
I'm glad you're here. I hope you were with us more.
Oh, thank you very much.
Sounds good. For Bill Jameson and Hagir Elsheikh, my name is Justin Geist. Thank you for listening and for watching. This has been Reach Out.
Thank you all.